Dear all, a very warm welcome from IAP technical team. We would soon be starting our webinar. I request Dr. Devinder to take over the stage.
Thank you, Dr. Sumit. Good afternoon, everyone. I, Dr. Devinder Kaur Dhillon, State Coordinator, Punjab IAP Women's Cell. Welcome you all here on today's webinar on breast cancer, physiotherapy assessment and management. Before we begin this session, I would like to inform all the participants that there are some takeaways which the attendees can get at the end of this session by filling a feedback form. Now, I would like to say a few words for our speaker, Dr. Samarnika Das. Dr. Samarnika Das is the founder and co-director of Curamos Physiotherapy. She also holds the position of Goa State Coordinator for IAP Women's Cell, wherein she has proved herself as a very dynamic and active leader for the state, and she's been working constantly for the benefit of physios. Dr. Samarnika, having completed her master's in sports physiotherapy, is also a certified manual therapist from McConnell Institute, Australia. She is also associated with various marathons for more than 5 years, like Goa River Marathon, Forum People Run, Alzheimer's Run, and Goa Fire Run, and is providing specialized physiotherapy to the runners and the marathoners. Dr. Samarnika has shown an exemplary commitment towards sports physiotherapy by being associated with Salgokar Football Club Goa and Prakash Badminton Academy. She has been a sports evangelist through various forms of articles on social platforms and poster presentations. She always active in media and press with press releases on various physiotherapy topics and also published about 23 articles online. She has also addressed on 28 different public platforms on important physiotherapy topics, which is a great contribution in the field. Now, I would like to request Dr. Samarnika to kindly start the session.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're audible.
You can be a little louder, Dr. Smanika. Your voice is...
Okay, I'll do that. Am I audible now?
This is good.
Yes. So I just wanted to know, can you see the screen as well?
Yes, your screen is visible, but it shows your web browser. It doesn't show your presentation.
What does it show now?
Still the same.
Okay, can you see it now?
No. It's still the same.
Okay. What do you see now? Can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay.
You can go on slideshow.
Yeah, I'll do that. Okay. So we'll be starting shortly. Okay. My audio video is clear.
Yes, good to go.
Okay, fine. So today's topic that we are going to take is breast cancer assessment and management in physiotherapy. Okay. So before we start going on to the main topic, I want to tell you what am I going to cover in this. So this is not the assessment of breast cancer. It is the physiotherapy assessment that we take after that. Okay. So, and what is going to be the management of the breast cancer from the physiotherapy point of view? All right. So we start with the cancer statistics basically. So I know the statistics can be a bit scary as well as depressing, but why I'm showing you this is to basically make you understand the scope of physiotherapy for you. Okay, so if we see the total number of cases in 2018, it is more than 11 lakh cases. Okay, so these many people actually require your help. When we come to breast cancer, it is 14%, which is actually the second highest number of cancer that we see, and it is more than 1,62,000. That means these are the people who will need our care because they are suffering from breast cancer. Okay, and these people not only need our care once the diagnosed, but even post therapy. So I'm going to tell you all the stages in which they will need our support. Okay, but before that, let us understand what is our goal of treatment. So in cancer, what are we going to do? We are not treating cancer, please understand that. So when we say the treatment of cancer, we are doing the rehabilitation and the prehabilitation part, and our main aim here is increase the functional activity level of a person and the quality of life. Okay, now this can go down because of two things. What are these? First, minimize some effects of with the disease and its treatment. So disease can also have some problems which we have to solve for the patient, or it could be the treatment, because the treatment in itself has a lot of side effects. Okay, it is often possible to improve the quality of life regardless of the progression by helping them to achieve their maximum potential of functional ability and independence, or gain even relief from the distressing symptoms. So we might not be sometimes able to remove all the symptoms depending on what exactly the symptoms are, but we can help them lead a much better life. That's what our role is. Okay, so cancer rehabilitation is not something which is done only by physiotherapist. It is a team. It is a team of everybody coming together, from the oncologist, um, depending on what the treatment is. If we are looking at mastectomy as treatment, then the surgical oncologist will get on board. If it is the radiation, then the radiation oncologist will be on board. Chemotherapy, they will be a medical oncologist on board. So like that, there is going to be a physiotherapist, occupational therapist, nutritionist, there could be some yoga therapist involved, or even the psychologist, very very important for the counseling. So our role is very very important in that. That is the preventive role. Okay, so I'm going to basically go through this pretty quickly, and will give you a major idea about it. Preventive role means what? Mobility, and also once a person is diagnosed, before their surgery is done or chemo is started, we have to make them undergo this preventive care, the whole of preventive care, which is known as the prehabilitation. Then we have the restorative. Restorative means whatever is there with them, we have to restore their whatever ability is there. So that is rehabilitation. Is the objective is when no or little residual disability is anticipated for some time, and patients are expected to return from the normal living styles. Okay, so that was preventive. Restorative. Supportive, we have to also give them a supportive care, so which is enhance the independent functioning when residual cancer is present and progressive disability is probable. So it has to be a supportive care also. Encouragement, education, treatment in achieving physical work and lifestyle goals, availability of therapist as a resource. So everywhere we are going to be a resource, because we are going to give them the awareness. So these points, whatever we are taking right now, I will explain them uh, in terms of breast cancer. Okay, so then we have a palliative care, which is basically primarily it is directed towards promoting maximum comfort. Okay, and maintaining high level of function possible in the face of disease progression. Now, before we come into the assessment part, I want to put certain things in your place. So I told you, right, how we are going to think in terms of breast cancer. So first thing is going to be prehab. Prehab means somebody has been diagnosed by breast cancer. So what we have to do, we have to first counsel them. We have to make them understand that it is not a session or two that we are going to do. We are going to discuss with the oncologist what is going to be your treatment. If it is surgical, post-surgical, what care we are going to give. If they are planning on radiotherapy, chemotherapy, then what is going to be our role there once all these things are done. Then in the post rehab, what are we going to do? Okay, so now when the treatment is done, there could be two outcomes to it. There could be a very good prognosis, and the person might actually get the relief out of it, right? So once the patient gets the relief, then he's going to go to the next stage, which is the post operative care. There can be a post, like during the chemo, during treatment care, radiological radiation care, and then there is going to be a post treatment care. If the treatment does not have a very good prognosis, it's like a stage 4, then it is going to come to the palliative care, wherein we have to give them the palliative care. So everywhere physiotherapy is going to be equally important. Okay, now coming to the cancer, but after it has been diagnosed. Okay, so what are we going to ask the patient? We are going to ask the patient about the history. What was the history? How did they find out about the breast cancer? Now, majority of the breast cancer survivors, if we ask them, in my practice, I have seen them most of the time. It is their husbands who have told them that, there is some kind of a lump that I feel in the breast, and that's when they have gone for a mammogram. So, majority of the females in India do not go for a self breast examination or a mammogram otherwise. So, that is majorly found in the history. The history that we take with them is also going to be any previous case of breast cancer or any other cancer in their family also. Then comes the diagnosis. How was the diagnosis done? What was the diagnostic tool that was used? Okay, so these things are also equally important, because they will do the lymph node biopsy also, so we will get to know whether it is spreading to the limbs, because if it is spreading to the limbs, then we know for sure that lymphedema is going to come fast. So we have to look into that in terms of the assessment. Okay, then comes the cancer treatment, whether it is completed. Am I doing a post rehab for the cancer patient, or it is current, it is going on, or it is planned? Planned means it's going to be a prehab case. So in prehab case, for example, I know that for sure the shoulder mobility is in risk. So I will start with shoulder activities beforehand itself. Okay. Then there are certain side effects of, like, if I know that they are planning for a chemotherapy, then I'm going to work on increasing the cardiovascular endurance of the person, because what is going to happen is, because of the um, chemotherapy can induce fatigue or cachexia or sarcopenia. So these are certain side effects we will come on to. So because of that, we have to definitely take these things into consideration when we are doing the treat. Okay. Medical and surgical history is very important. Why medical surgical history is important? For example, the person is already diabetic, so there could be some other complications that we have to look into. Could be having a hypothyroid. Surgical history could be, for example, any kind of rib fracture in that particular area, or we know that it is a case of osteoporosis. It could be because of the radiation also, or it can be one side mastectomy already done. So what happens is, second side always has a more amount of risk. Okay. Now, personal history is very important to find out, is it heredity? Did anybody in their family had it? Also, the risk of breast cancer is more in females who do not breastfeed at all, or who've had their first child after 35, or who've not had a child, or the personal history could be also regarding drinking, smoking, because these are risk factors. So we'll know what is it a high risk case or not. So if we know that, we can probably cause a little bit of a caution in their family. So if she has a sister also who has a similar thing, then she can be diagnosed beforehand, only because they are going to check for BRCA gene. That is going to be the factor over here. So to bring to your notice over here. You know that very famous actor Angelina Jolie, she did her mastectomy as a preventive care because her mother died of breast cancer. So she tested herself, she had BRCA gene, so she knew that it's going to happen to me. She had had a kid, and then she thought that it's not worth taking a chance, and she did her mastectomies, both the sides. So that is basically that a help comes from a personal history. Okay, now we are going to treat the patient. So we need to have their musculoskeletal assessment done, which will include your range of motion, strength, core strength. That is also equally important. And we will also check what is their cardiovascular endurance in that, though it will come later. Neurological assessment is equally important because here sensations are very important. One of the side effects is neuropathy. So in that, we have to check the sensation over the hand, foot, these areas first. Then we have fatigue assessment. So fatigue assessment, what will matter here is how is the onset of the fatigue, what are the aggravating factors, what are the relieving factors, what is the diurnal variation. So there are a lot of scales that are used in terms of fatigue assessment. I generally use fact fatigue questionnaire. Okay, so why I use it, because it serves me two purposes actually. So that's why. So the fact is basically functional assessment of cancer therapy, uh, and it is for fatigue, so we call it FACT-F, which was later changed into FACIT, which I'll come to the next. Okay, so that also I will tell what exactly it is. Then we have lymphedema assessment, which is very important. You should be doing regular screenings. Clinical assessment of lymphedema. So lymphedema is something that can be seen in a breast cancer case even after 5 to 10 years of breast cancer survivorship. So it is important that not only that we regularly screen them, but we teach the patient itself how to do this kind of testing themselves, so that they are able to screen themselves from time to time. Because once you've had, like, we have 5-year survival plans, 10-year survival plans, so in that there are regular follow-ups with the doctor, but then they start to kind of increase in duration. So which is like 1 month follow-ups, then we have 3-month ones, 6 months ones, 1 year ones. So in that time we teach them how to go about it, how to do it. Okay, we actually also educate them about staging of lymphedema, so that they have a little bit of an idea that if I'm having this particular problem, it could be something, that lymphedema is starting right now, so let me go to my doctor and take their advice. It's very important because lymphedema is one of the biggest side effects of breast cancer, and it is untreatable. You can't really treat it, you can just contain it. So it's very important that we are able to take care of it from the very starting. So in the severity, we have to, these 3 tests are generally done, and I try to always teach my patient the first one, which is the absolute circumference measurement, which they can do themselves. So keep comparing both the sides of the arm. We take one measurement before their surgery, and we give the measurement to them, and we say that this is your baseline, and make sure you check that, because sometimes it is bilateral mastectomies, so in that case you can't compare right to left, both might have it. Okay, volumetric measurements basically done in a jar where you keep your hand and the volume of the fluid increases because of the increase in the swelling. You can also use bioimpedance spectrometry and infrared pyrometry for that. These are little big machines, so this they have to come back to us to do it, and all the centers don't have it, but good big centers will have these kind of machines. Okay, then we'll have physical fitness assessment, as I was telling you, cardiovascular endurance. So we do a 6-minute walk test. For that, health related quality of life is again checked by the fact or the FACEIT. FACEIT was, as I told you, it was modified, and it was like functional assessment of chronic illness therapy. So it is almost the same thing. It will check both the fatigue as well as your quality of life. It is basically a questionnaire that you have to give the patient, and then they will fill it up, and according to the scoring we'll get to know. So because it serves me two purposes, that's why I try to do this, because it's easier for me to keep the records. Now, coming to the treatment options, I'm sure most of you are aware of the treatment options that we have. So we have hormone therapy, we have immunotherapy, radiation therapy, chemotherapy, targeted therapy, bone marrow transplantation, and surgery. Okay, so basically what I'm showing you here is, towards the specificity also. So for example, something like a hormonal therapy, immunotherapy, these all work on the whole body. So basically the side effects are seen on whole body. Whereas when it is targeted therapy is similar to chemotherapy. Only thing is, in this, the healthy cells are something which are secured, and only the cancer cells will die. Okay, or bone marrow transplantation, little lesser because the area of effect is pretty local. Surgery is absolutely going to work only on that area. It's like exactly on that point. So basically, when we do the therapy, um, we have to look into it, that is it going to have a full body side effect more, or it is just a surgery, so I'm going to have to look into a smaller area. Okay, but generally it is going to be a combination of a radiotherapy and a chemotherapy and surgery. So there will be surgery, then there is going to be followed by some chemo sessions, some radio sessions, and like that. So we have to know about what is going to be their care. The oncologist will discuss it. They're going to do a whole examination to find out what I can do. For example, it's an old lady who has got breast cancer and she's already osteoporotic. So before we start radiotherapy, we have to check the x-ray of femur for the bone density. If her bone density is already low, radiation can even further reduce the bone density, and she can have a very minor fall and break her leg. So because of that, we have to check these things, and we should know what are the side effects, because we are kind of treating the side effects over here. So what are the side effects? I'm just going to go with it, and then we will discuss each one with a little bit of detail. We can have fatigue, general weakness, scar tissue adhesions, neuropathy, osteoporosis, lymphedema can be there, joint restrictions can be there, muscle tightness, cardiovascular endurance, and urinary fecal incontinence. So urinary fecal incontinence would, when will it happen? It will generally happen in case the person has breast cancer and then it has metastasized, or it has gone to ovary. It can cause a ovarian cancer also. So in that case, hormonal therapy is given. In that case, when the surgery is done, in the pelvic floor, then urinary fecal incontinence can happen. So we have to look into it, because overall you don't know which stage the patient is going to come into it. So you should be aware of what are the side effects and what I have to do in that. So this is going to be an overall one wherein I'm going to talk about it in specification. If there are any questions, do put it on the chat, on the question and answer, and then we can take it up. So we are going to do stretching, range of motion exercises, joint mobilization, gait and balance training, scar tissue mobilization, strengthening, cardiovascular rehabilitation, pelvic floor rehabilitation, lymphedema education and treatment, skin care and patient education of the reduced risk of infection, which is generally cellulitis in this case. So when do we do stretching? Basically, when there is kind of a surgical scar which is limiting the range of motion, we can start with stretching. We can also do it in case of generalized weakness which happens with chemotherapy. Okay, and what kind of stretching? So because it is breast cancer, look at it this way. We are going to work on the mobility of the neck. Okay, so neck stretches, chest stretches, very important because of the scar in the area. Back stretches, very important. Why? Because generally in chemotherapy, they are going to have chemotherapy induced weakness or fatigue. So mostly going to be on back, which causes a lot of back pain in many people because they're immobile, inactivity. So for that, back also is given. Now, once they want to start walking after that, you need to make sure that the lower extremity, hip, everything is in place in terms of strength and in range of motion. So this helps us with the range of motion. These are the exercises I would like to give. You can always add. I've just given like some examples. So wherein what I mean to say is, when I'm saying cervical rotation, wall slides, wall squats, I'm not leaving the lower extremity, because when the patient is coming back, they need to walk and all, they should be having strength even here. I always suggest them, if possible, take like a stationary bicycle, so you can be sitting and you can be doing the exercises. So instead of taking a whole cycle, I generally advise them to take an ergometer. So what happens with an ergometer is that you can sit and you can do cycling for the legs. The same thing you can keep on the table, and you can do the hand exercises also, which is equally beneficial for them in case of lymphodemas. Scar tissues are one more thing which happen with the surgery, any surgery, it's not only this. Um so what we do in the scar tissue is, so first you have to see about the healing of the scar tissue, but before that, scar tissue is nothing but a connective tissue, okay, which is going to, like, if I have a wound which is separated, so once it is coming, so there's going to be scar tissue coming here, okay, and it is going to bind it together, so it's kind of a dense fibrous tissue, but it is not a permanent tissue. So what you have to do basically is it needs to be remodeled, okay. So scar tissue is not going to go anywhere after the healing will take place, so we have to resolve that. It has to be remodeled so that it can tolerate the stress or the forces that the body will encounter throughout the day there, okay. And it is a very essential process. Without scar tissue mobilization, achieving full range of motion is very difficult. If you don't have full range of motion, strength and mobility are going to be a big concern. So the techniques that we use over here, we can use cross-fiction massage, skin rolling. There are superficial massages, soft tissue massages, which you say, lymphatic massage, because here lymph is also a point that we have to take into consideration. That's why lymphatic massage. So when to begin is generally after like 1 week after the surgery. Don't start it exactly at the area of scar. For example, this, if I have a scar over here, I will go 2 inches, 3 inches, away from it, start the mobilization of the scar tissue. I will not go directly onto the tissue. So if I can show you a demo later if there are any questions, if there are any doubts. But how many times to do? 3 to 5 minutes you can do in a day, like twice. I generally recommend my patients to do it for 4 times. I say you can do it for 2-3 minutes, but do it 4 times, because they end up doing only 2 or 3. So that but it has to be done very frequently. The motions that we use over here are like circular, front, back, zigzag motions along the line of scar. You're pinching, crossing, perpendicular. So if you are aware of it, fine. If you don't, then you can ask like a question on it and I can demonstrate it, not a problem. So there are certain aids also which can be used if it is available. One is silicone sheets. So these are the silicone sheets, the blue ones, which are used to, reduce the scar. So it's not that it is something which you can use and you need not to do any scar tissue massage. You do the scar tissue massage. In fact, I teach the patient how to do it, so that they can do it at home. And then that sheet has to be applied on it. It will help reducing it. Moisturizing creams can be used while, so that is always a case, unless you see that it's not healed up properly, then we use the betadine powder around it. But otherwise we use a moisturizing cream if the ends are totally sealed and the scar is totally formed. Taping can also be used in this, and compression garments really give very, very good result, both in this as well as lymphedema. So it is a must for them to go for compression garments. Manual therapy techniques, mobilization, wherever you find range of motion is less, work on the joint mobility and range of motion. I've shown you both because see what happens is it's not only the upper limb. We are going to deal more with the upper limb, but lower limb can be a problem later on if they are not able to walk properly, their endurance level is low. So we have to work on the full range of motion over here for both. Now coming to the next, which is neuropathy. Neuropathy is generally a side effect of the chemotherapy that is given. So the chemotherapy and drugs that are used to treat the cancer can actually damage the peripheral nerves of our body, and this is known as the chemotherapy induced peripheral neuropathy. Okay. Now, peripheral neuropathy can be there from beforehand also. How it can be there? So there are some other causes also. It is not necessary immediately it will come after chemo, but see, sometimes it could be because of some surgery, radiation, cancer itself. Like for example, somebody has multiple myeloma, then it will cause it. Okay. or it could be infections in the nerves, tumors pressing on the nerves. That also could be a cause. So similarly, in this case, our case, we can have the problem if the person was alcoholic and had an alcoholic neuropathy beforehand, right? So in the alcoholic neuropathy, they already have neuropathy, so we have to treat that. Similarly, B12 deficiencies can also cause neuropathy. Some autoimmune disorders could be there and then they have the cancer. That could also be a problem. Or it can be that they have a peripheral vascular disease beforehand and then they have developed cancer and the chemotherapy was given. So it will just aggravate the condition. So always check for the sensations beforehand and also after the surgery, chemotherapy, like the whole treatment. It's a consistent thing that you have to do. Okay, so in terms of assessment, when I come to the assessment, so one thing which I've told you, fatigue assessment, we use the fact scale, right? So in the takeaways, we are giving the fact scale to you. So you can check the fact scale for that. Similarly, I'm giving two more assessment scales. One is going to be for the peripheral neuropathy, which is the Michigan Peripheral Neuropathy Scale. It's a questionnaire. So that also will be given in the takeaways. And when we come to lymphedema, there is a separate like assessment for lymphedema. So that also I'm sharing with you guys in the takeaways. So those you can fill up your feedback forms for that. Now coming to the problems that they will suggest that they have, loss of feeling, hypersensitivity can be there, freezing, tingling, or a sharp jabbing pain. It could be a burning sensation that they have, numbness. These are all symptoms that you need to take care of. In treatment, what are we doing? So we are definitely, the medication will be there, oral medication, patches and all will be there, but you can use acupuncture or even dry needling. In some cases have shown good results, so yes, that can be used. Electrical stimulation can be used. Fine motor activities, I have given some example of the fine motor activities in a in a place where we are having a lot of doctors looking into it. This is actually a job of occupational therapist, but yes, we can also do it. So something like gripping, buttoning, writing, because generally see neuropathy will start from your smaller joints. So always make sure that the smaller joints are getting the activity. Balance training and skincare is another thing. Why balance training? Because of neuropathy, they can't feel the floor properly. So there's a likelihood that they will be low on balance and they can have falls. Okay, so now it's something, it's not necessary that you have to look at only with one side effect. For example, if a person is taking radiation, then they're osteoporotic, so that is also reducing the bone density. At the same time, the chemotherapy is going to create a neuropathy problem, so they are going to lose sensation, so they lose balance. In that scenario, if they fall, then they're definitely going to break the bone. So we have to look at it in totality, what treatments they have taken, what can be the possible side effects that they have, and then keep assessing them. That's why neuropathy assessment I'm giving separately, lymphedema separately, and their fatigue assessment separately. When it comes to bone density, you can always take the x-ray of the femur, and that will give a very good idea about what exactly is the bone density of the person. This is generally taken before radio therapy starts. So you can use the same x-ray to do your assessment, also need not to take again and again x-rays. Coming to the gait and balance training, very, very important because of what I told you right now, that it is very important because it can reduce the risk of fall. Okay, because of neuropathy, osteoporotic fractures, also it will reduce, it helps in improving strength, stability, body awareness, and endurance. So here we have certain exercises called as Richardson's exercises, the specific balance exercises for basically for diabetic neuropathy, but we use them in this case also. So I use it a lot. Again, if it is something of interest, you can put it on the questions and I can take a demo of it, not a problem. If time permits, we'll definitely do that. Yeah. Now, cardiovascular rehabilitation, we have different guidelines of that. What you have to understand is whether it is a high intensity activity or a low intensity activity, and then we can see what they are going to do. So this will probably your summary. Okay. First thing is ACSM and ACS guidelines. So ACS is American Cancer Society and ACSM is American College of Sports Medicine. They say first thing is to avoid inactivity. Okay. Second thing is we have to look into the aerobic exercise and the resistance exercise. So if they are doing aerobic exercise, see what kind of activity they can do. If they are doing moderate intensity, it has to be 150 minutes per week. If it is going to be vigorous, then you can go with 30 minutes for 5 days per week. Okay. And it has got additional benefits. Now, when I say this decision, how do you take the decision? For example, a person is undergone the surgery and now they're undergoing the chemotherapy. So in that particular case, I have to reduce the intensity of their exercise because of the extreme amount of fatigue that they are going to feel. But after that is over and they are cancer free, then we do the post rehab sessions. We can increase the intensity. Somebody who has been already very active can start with active exercises before the surgeries and chemotherapy. Again, their intensity will lower down and again we can increase it. So it depends on what the person can do. So you do your fact assessment then, and you find out what is the fatigue level and decide whether I'm going to do a moderate intensity aerobic activity or a vigorous intensity. Then coming to the resistance exercises, again 2 times per week can be done. You can select like 6 to 10 exercises, 1 to 4 sets can be done per muscle groups. Try to focus on major muscle groups over here. Now we come to lymphedema. So what is lymphedema? Lymphedema is one of the major side effects. It's the last that I would be taking, and then we are open for question and answer. So abnormal accumulation of protein rich fluid, which is when accumulated can cause chronic inflammation, and it can also cause some abnormal development of injury to the lymphatic system. Okay, so we have 4 stages of it. I want to show you the photographs and then explain the stages. Okay, though I'm showing you both upper and lower extremity, in breast cancer we see like the upper extremity only. Okay, so what we see in upper extremity, stage 1. Stage 1 is basically your latency period. Latency period is when the symptoms will start, but if you see, compare both of them, you are not going to see much of a difference in the extremity circumference. So what we see here, the patient complains of heaviness, the patient complains of itchiness in the area. So when you see such cases of post breast cancer, they come to you. By the way, latency period can be something which is very long. So I have seen people developing immediately after surgery the lymphedema. Some people take it 6 months, some people even after 5 to 10 years. So the latency can be like a long period. So that's why I tell them to self assess themselves. So we check for them, and when we find it, this is like a latency period. There is no other symptom than these two. Okay. Then we come to stage 2. So what was stage 2? Reversible lymphedema. Okay. So in the reversible lymphedema, what is happening? You see some amount of swelling and you see some spitting also. But whenever you do the anti-gravity exercises like this swelling reduces. So then we understand, okay, this is a reversible lymphedema. This is very crucial stage where we have to start them on compression garments if they have reached, because generally they don't reach us here. By accident we can find, like for example in my case, I found one of the cervical radiculopathy cases that I was treating had a breast cancer history. So when I had asked her, do you have any swelling or something, she said no. So when she was developing a pain which was a radiating pain, I saw one day that behind her like around the tricep area, she had a lot of scratch marks. So I had to ask her like what happened. So she told me that, I get a lot of itchiness. That kind of strike me that this can be a starting of the lymphedema. And then I said, like, we have to connect with your oncologist. I need to discuss the symptoms with him. And we did a circumference test, and there was a very slight difference. But she never thought of it because right hand is a dominant hand. And she always said that, when I wear blouses, I always felt that the left side was a little more tighter. But I thought it's always been there with me. So sometimes you take it lightly. So it was like by accident we found out. So we immediately put her into compression garments. But generally you will see the people in stage 2 where pitting has already started. Stage 3 is irreversible lymphedema. So wherein pitting has started, in the circumference has also increased. But now when you do the anti-gravity exercises of raising hand, there is no change that you see. There's no reduction in the swelling. Then the last stage is basically the lymphostatic elephantiasis. You can see this is an irreversible stage now. It will also be accompanied with fibrosis, sclerosis, some papillomas, and dark color of the skin, if you see, this is hyperkeratosis. So these all start, and this is the time that cellulitis can start. Now this is how a cellulitis would look like. Okay, how would you see it as a cellulitis? It is a slow onset progressive thing, generally would start from the distal toes or fingers. It's pretty asymmetric, so you will not see it in both the sides, unless if it is even if it is bilateral like mastectomy. I have not seen the pattern to be really same. Cellulitis is very common, and this is basically a problematic situation with the lymphodemas. Otherwise, lymphodemas are not really painful. They are rarely painful. Discomfort, heaviness, achiness, skin changes. Because of the dryness of the skin, you have a lot of itchiness in the area. Ulcerations are generally unusual. What are the treatments? This was, I think, one of the questions also which was asked in the very starting. So we have lymphatic massage, which should be done. This is done by a certified lymphatic therapist. So this is something that we do. Compression bandaging is done. Compression garments are used as prophylaxis. Please understand, you cannot reduce the lymphedema. You can prevent it from increasing further. So that's very important. So you cannot say wear this compression garments and you'll be absolutely fine. No, that is not the thing. Then comes to exercise. Mostly for hands, we take like anti-gravity. Like we'll do a lot of anti-gravity exercises. But first major thing is going to be full range of motion. So we are going to work on getting them full range of motion, and then only we start the anti-gravity. Skin and nail care is very, very important in all the cases over here, whether it is neuropathy, whether it is lymphedema. So that is like an awareness. We generally give like them a pamphlet, what all care they have to take. So you can design something of that sort. But counseling is very important. So these should be in your leaflets to go. Like education on the precaution. What are the precautions? Like, regular testing of yourself, you self-assessment itself, and pumps. So these are the pumps that I'm talking about. These are generally available in hospitals. With the pressure, they can reduce the swelling. But I always suggest them go for compression garments, because that you can wear for longer time. This can be only if they come in the OPD. Now, these are certain guidelines. So your NLN is basically the National Lymphedema Network, and they have given these certain guidelines which has to be used. So whenever somebody has a lymphedema on one limb, they should not be using that limb for exercises or for taking blood pressure. Always avoid extreme temperatures. Very high heat is going to expand their limbs. Cold means the skin will start breaking up. Protect it from the sun by using sunscreens. Always avoid like insect bites, and also wear socks, shoes, this kind of things. If you're going for a hike or something, wear proper shoes. Don't go with chappals. Compression garments mandatory, specifically when they fly. That's very, very important. Avoid limb constriction with the tight clothing. So don't go with tight clothing, basically. Always optimal mate, because if you increase in the weight, the lymphedema automatically increases. So that is also one way. So regular exercises are very important in this. Yeah. So here, I end my session. If you have any questions, you can please ask me.
Hello, thank you, ma'am, for this wonderful presentation. And here we have some queries from the participants.
Sure.
Yeah. First question is, how can the patient recognize any lymphedema pathology?
How can they recognize?
How can the patient recognize any lymphedema pathology?
So that is what, see, suppose a person has only unilateral mastectomy. So they are going to take a circumference of their, we take a circumference basically in the arms, forearm. Okay. These places we take a circumference pre the surgery and we give them. And then we ask them to keep on taking these measurements every month, or in once in 2 months. Okay. So they will see a difference in the circumference. That's how they will know that the swelling is coming. So if they don't have any symptoms, for example, the swelling is coming because of any cervical symptoms, then there is going to be pain associated. Whereas in lymphedema, there is no pain associated. So if they feel itchiness in that area or heaviness in that area, swelling is also seen, then it is lymphedema. They can also like press the area, look for a pitting edema. If this is pitting, then also it is a stage of lymphedema. Does that answer your question?
I hope You answered it very well. And next question is how to drain seroma collection in axillary area if patient don't want regular seroma aspiration in case when complete lymph node removal has been done.
So in case of complete lymph node removal, you have to understand one thing, that this person is somebody who is definitely going to have a lymphedema. Okay. So first of all, try not to have the seromus collection at all in that particular area. In case it is there, so how you will avoid, first is put them into compression garments day one. Don't wait. Don't wait that you see some kind of a swelling. And this compression garments are generally 24/7 compression garments. So generally what you do is, one person is using like two per compression, three compression garments per day. Morning there is a separate one, night there is a separate one, but they are into compression garments. So that will make sure that there is no collection. But if there is a seromus collections, I think the best way is going to be by the aspiration only. If not, then we have to use the massage technique, followed by the massage technique. Now you want to remove this, so you can use the bandaging technique. Okay. This will help in removing, but this is going to be very slow. So if this proteinous fluid accumulates, the chances of infections are very high. So you have to also understand that she still might be undergoing chemotherapy or radiotherapy. So the chances of infections are even high, especially with chemotherapy, your immune system goes down. So I would suggest that you go with compression garments from day one. That will help. You can let me know, Rashmi, if that answers your question or you want further more queries.
Should we move to the next question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. You talk about the lymphatic massage. Is it stroking or effleurage?
It's more like effleurage, but you cannot really say that effleurage and stroking itself constitutes a lymphatic massage. There are different other techniques also involved into it, but similar to effleurage. For that, you have to be, a certified lymphatic, certified by for the lymphatic massage. So that's a different course altogether.
Okay. And the next question is, which type of bandaging is optimum for lymphedema? Figure of 8 or overlapping type?
Overlapping type on the whole area. Figure of 8 comes on the joints. Okay. So for example, I will start overlapping, figure of 8, overlapping, figure of 8, overlapping, figure of 8. So on joints, it is always figure of 8.
Okay. And can we give pneumatic compression therapy in stage 4 lymphedema?
It will not help. You can give, but it will not help.
Okay. And the next question is, are any specific exercises of upper limb which are contraindicated in
Your voice is
breast
breaking.
cancer survivor?
Voice is breaking. Let me check the question. Could you repeat the question?
Yeah. Are there any specific exercises of upper limb which are contraindicated in breast cancer survivors?
It's again not very audible. Is it there in the chat or on the?
Okay, ma'am. I'll just put in the chat because it is from the other platforms.
Okay, no problem. Does it mean you want? I can't really hear you. You can put it on the chat. I can see the chat.
Yeah, sure.
So I see a question up to which stage pneumatic compression will help. Is that the question? Okay, anyways, I will answer this. Yeah. So which stage the pneumatic compression will help? It will help in the second and to an extent in the third stage, but I would say second stage is the best stage in which pneumatic compression works, because here the fibrosis has not started yet. Okay, in the very starting stage of third stage also you can use it. There also it will help, but once it has crossed a stage where it is spitting and you take it anti-gravity and it is still not giving any effect, then it is not going to work. I think, yeah, I got your question, Davinder. Exercises contraindicated in upper limb. right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
any exercise which is gravity dependent, for example, I will tell you, generally when you lose the shoulder mobility, we try to do this pendular exercises, right? But if the patient is already developed the symptoms of lymphedema, then if you do the pendular exercises, it will increase the lymphedema. So basically, you have to take a proper assessment. Whenever you're treating a patient, you want to give upper limb exercises. Keep in mind, neuropathy is there, fatigue is there, lymphedema is there. These are three important things. That's why I've given the scale separately. So look into lymphedema. If you don't see any symptoms of lymphedema, then you can go ahead with even those exercises, weight exercises, because here it is like gravity dependent. So that is basically something which is contraindicated if they have lymphedema. So it is really dependent on what lymphedema they have or not.
Okay. Dr. Akanksha has requested if you can demonstrate lymphatic massage technique.
Lymphatic massage technique is something which is a whole course in itself. So
Yeah, ma'am. There is a request for
I
scars
will
to
have very
massage.
difficulty in these few minutes that we have left with. But you can separately message me. What I can see. Anyways, let me tell you one thing. You have to be a certified person to do this. Okay. So it's not that I teach you and you start doing this particular thing. It's always better that you do it correctly, so you get yourself certified in it. There could be some helping tips which I can give you with this, but certification is mandatory in such cases. And especially oncologists ask for it. They want that you have to be certified then only, because it is a case of cancer, right? So they always want a certified lymphatic massage therapist. Yeah.
Up to which stage we can give pneumatic compression therapy?
The same thing. Yeah, I have answered it. Second stage, starting of third stage, till that only.
Then, does the management principle changes with the mode of surgery, like in lumpectomy
Yeah,
or
definitely.
in radical mastectomy?
Yeah, definitely it does. It depends whether, see, you have to see whether the lymphs were removed or not. Was it only radical mastectomy, which is generally done, or it was total mastectomy? So your side effects are going to increase, because if it is total mastectomy, then the chemo will start. So chemo has two major problems: peripheral neuropathy starts, fatigue starts. So one more thing that it has is sarcopenia. I didn't talk about sarcopenia much because as a rehab professional, it will majorly come under nutrition. So what happens is, in after this they start reducing the muscle mass. It's very different from malnutrition. It's not that all the nutrition is less, but your muscle mass start reducing. So once that happens, sarcopenia happens. So this is also known as cachexia. It is called chemotherapy induced cachexia. So this can be a great problem also. So in this case, it's majorly dealt by the nutrition. But yes, there are researches going on to find out, is lymphedema and this cachexia related, because lymphedema is nothing but the protein rich fluid getting accumulated. That means it is not being utilized. If it is not being utilized, is that the cause of the protein output coming out of it, the muscles, and they are not able to recycle it. So it's still under research.
Okay. Ma'am, another question is, according to a patient of breast cancer survivor, taping was contraindicated for her tennis elbow.
For what? Tennis elbow.
For tennis elbow, yeah.
See, it depends. Why are we doing taping? Also, see, so for example, I'll give you. If somebody is having scar tissue, taping will help there. Okay, because we want to join it. But somebody already has lymphedema. So what happens? The chances of the skin breakage is there. We call it chapping of the skin. Or if the person spends more time in colder environments. So in such scenario, if we will do taping, while the removal of the taping, we can definitely have a problem with the skin can break out. So it could be probably that. But otherwise, for example, now upper limb, yes, I can understand. If it is a taping in the lower limb, there should be no problem. So as such, not contraindicated, but for that particular arm, for example, the mastectomy is down on the right side, you can do taping on the left side. That is not the problem. See, this is something which is local in nature. What is I would say for the whole body, for example, is going to be like in case of radiotherapy. When you do radiotherapy, you cannot do any kind of electrical modality. That's like a total contraindication. This is selective. This is depending on where your mastectomy, which side it was done. That side it can be, because if they think that they know there are some symptoms, because dryness of skin happens automatically, so that is the reason it is probably avoided. But I told to use taping for scar tissue, I didn't ask you to use it for anything else.
Next question is there any particular brand of compression garment or any garment will do?
There are many brands which are available. I specifically don't promote a particular brand. So I am currently operating out of Hyderabad. Here we have a person who comes, takes the measurements and make the garments. It's like a good material, that lycra kind of material. If you want, we can probably give his contact. But if you go to, see, as a physiotherapist, we are generally in touch with this orthotic guys, so you can ask them, they can procure it. I generally, for Goa, I procure it always from Mumbai. So there are a lot of places where you can, this is like custom made. I generally go with custom made, because what happens, you are going to go for only one hand, right? Or one leg. It is very less seen that both the sides, you have done a total mastectomy. Even if both the sides are affected, they won't be affected equally. So one might be more thicker, one might be still okay. So we have to go with custom made.
Okay. Next question is there is some taping technique for edema. Is that technique going to help in lymphedema?
I couldn't hear it. Is there in the chat?
The taping techniques for edema,
Yeah.
are they going to help in lymphedema?
No. It will not help you. See, compression garments is also not reducing. It is stopping the stage at which you are. Because if you apply tape, for example, okay, so today you apply the tape, tomorrow you will remove it. You can't reapply the tape tomorrow. You have to give it some time. That one day of not applying the tape will cause major problem. That day the lymphedema will increase. So that is the reason we don't go for things which are going to help you for a few hours. When I say compression garments, I mean full day. It has to be full day, because you have to stop it. The moment you remove it and you do some other activity, gravity dependent activity, lifting activity, the lymphedema will increase. And as I told you, once it increases, you can't really bring it down. You have to just contain it. So taping will not work. In fact, it will, because the skin is dry. No, as I told you, the moment you remove the tape, the skin will also break.
Okay. Next question is from Dr. Rashmi. Her patient is on hormonal therapy, and what are the side effects of it and management to be done by a physio?
Yeah, so see, hormonal therapy, as in has she taken only hormonal therapy, or chemo or radio has already taken place? You have to give me a full history. It cannot be only on hormonal therapy that I can answer you this question. Because with hormonal therapy, see, understand estrogen, progesterone. So here you have to look into, the patient might develop osteoporosis also. So depending on that, we have to give the solution to it. If we can give them some balance exercises, weight bearing exercises will help them more, is what I do. But if it is hormonal, that with what combination? Was it with surgery, or chemo was given, or radio was given? These all things are mandatory for me to
Yeah,
answer
we
this
have
question.
mentioned only hormonal and mastectomy.
So now it is a surgery, right? So in this case, look into giving her weight bearing exercises, more hand weight bearing exercise, like on the table pressing the hand, or on the wall push kind of exercises, wall push up kind of, because she can't be able to do push up probably that easily. But wall push is something which you can give yourself resistance with the hand and say push against my hand. These kind of things can be done.
Okay,
Precautions here also, that weight bearing which I told you, pendulum exercises, be little careful on that, because if she has had surgery, lymphedema is a high risk. Yeah.
to the next question.
Yes.
Ma'am, there is a question on the Facebook that is there any precautions we should take while treating the breast cancer survivor patient coming for some other problem?
Okay. See, breast cancer survivor patient. Okay, you have to see whether she was on a 5-year survival plan or a 10-year survival plan. That is the first thing. With the 10-year survival plan, you can go with vigorous activities also. That means what, she was diagnosed at a earlier stage. Her age is lesser, so she can do higher intensity workout. When it comes to 5-year survival patients, then I would suggest that you go with little moderate intensity activities. And as I told you, electrotherapy can be contraindicated throughout when she is going the radiotherapy sessions. That is one thing we have to remember. Other than that, most of the things you can do, but again I told you, before you start any kind of new activity, like for example you did a fact scale, you started stretching, now she can do stretching properly. Now you want to progress to the resistance exercises, whether it is her body weight resistance, or it could be some extra weight, or you can even use therabands. So when you use such kind of activities, do a fact again, check their uh, fatigue levels once more. That is very important. Secondly, you can repeat the 6-minute test if you want to increase the duration of their activity. So they were doing like 15 minutes of exercise, now you think they are okay to do a little bit more, maybe 30 minutes, then go for 6-minute walk test again to check whether they have the stamina to be able to do that or not. Because majority I have seen problems with chemotherapy. See, patient is having the glass of water just next to them, and they are not able to lift it. It's that bad, they're that fatigued out.
Ma'am, according to the next question, can you please tell where a physio in India can get certified in lymph massage?
In lymphedema,
Lymph massage.
yeah, you can give my number there. Okay, I'll probably just write it for everybody over here. I'll give you the details on this. So I'm putting this number here. Any extra questions which are there, which we probably miss out from here, you can put that.
Okay, ma'am, we have it.
So it is 9421498449. I have already put it for everybody. So any questions that we are probably not able to answer because we already crossed the timing, you can ask me directly, and I will answer it.
Sure, ma'am. So we request all the participants, if you have any other questions, kindly contact ma'am directly. We'll be more
Yeah,
than
this number is given. So I thought that who's cannot, like what I can see, one question I can see here is who gives this 5 years, 10 year survival plan. Oncologist does that. It is not a physiotherapist job. But when their survival plans are given according to the staging at which they have come and their prognosis, if their prognosis is good, then they are giving these kind of plans, are generally a whole protocol.
Yes, ma'am. There is one more question. Uh, can you please explain where can we use dry needling?
So as I told you, dry needling was something which was being used, but then again, there's not much of evidence here. Acupuncture, they say, has good results. So if you ask me, like, where can we use it? I have shown you already. Where exactly can you use this particular thing? Any other questions?
I think we have discussed all.
Yeah, anything else is there, they can directly ask me. And also you can fill the feedback form, and you can have your takeaways from there. So what I've added is the fact questionnaire. I have added a lymphedema assessment form, Michigan peripheral neuropathy assessment form, and there is a cancer rehabilitation book and the presentation. So you can use that, and if you have any doubts, you can go through the presentation. If there's still any doubts, you can put the question onto this particular number which I have given.
Yeah. Now it's already 4:05. I think it's time to wind up.
Yeah, so before that, just I want to thank the whole of IAP, IAPWC, the technical team, and specifically IAPWC Punjab for organizing this, and for Dr. Davinder to give me this platform to spread this awareness about what we can do in cancer rehabilitation. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, ma'am. It was wonderful presentation, and I think this is a topic which we have rarely discussed in physiotherapy field, and thank you so much for enlightening us today. We also look forward to some future webinars with you. And
Sure. This is actually a 2-year course. So for me to take even a one topic in 1 hour is pretty less.
yeah, there is a time limit, and this is the problem. And no worries, ma'am. We can arrange in webinars in future also. And I would also like to thank Dr. Sanjita, Dr. Ruchi ma'am, and Dr. Deepthi Goyal for providing us this valuable platform. Okay, thanks a lot, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.